Hello and welcome to Kids Paranormal with me, Dad.
And me, Anna.
Thank you everyone who liked and subscribed and got in touch with us this week. You enjoyed that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you like it when people get in touch?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So a little girl got in touch with us. Do you remember the girl's name?
Melody, and she wants us to learn about the sirens.
Sirens? Like, woo, woo, nah, them kind of sirens?
No.
No. What kind of sirens?
They sing on the wall, actually.
Shh, don't give too much away. Melody, thank you so much for your suggestion. We are going to learn about sirens next week.
Yeah.
But something got released this week, so I think we should do a special episode about
the witches.
the witches. We're going to learn about the witches. Now, Emma, what do you know about witches?
They pop a spell on you, and it's kind of like a weird spell because I have like an eye book.
An eye book. So they have a spell book, and Bette Midler's character of Winifred Sanderson has a big spell book with an eye. And how does she call her book? Do you know how she calls her book?
She just taps on it and it just wiggles his eye around.
She did, she tapped on the glass, but when she needs it she goes, a book!
And it just like opens one of the eyes.
Now we're going to watch Hocus Pocus 2 this week. We've already watched Hocus Pocus 1, haven't we?
1. And Dad is out to this, so he doesn't know much about the end.
No, I didn't watch it because I had to go to work. But I've already seen it loads as a kid. I loved it so much. Now, witches. We're going to learn about witches in the real world, not in the movies. How long do you think witches have been around for, Emma?
6 years.
60 years.
Yeah.
So, Grandma would be older than a witch. Do you think your grandma's a witch?
No.
No, neither do I. She can't cook, she can't heal, she can't even make a cup of coffee. Her grandma, useless. Witches have been around for thousands of years. Now, one of the first witches ever mentioned was in the oldest book that I know of. And do you know what book that is?
Hocus Pocus?
Hocus Pocus. It's not Hocus Pocus. We would not be good on a pub quiz. It's the Bible. In the story of King Saul, he consulted a witch called the Witch of Endor. Now, there is good witches, but they're not scary, are they?
No.
So why would we want to learn about them?
I know about a bit of the Bible because I'm in year 2.
You did learn about religion in year 2, but this isn't a religious show. Although a lot of the paranormal, ghosts, goblins, you've got to have some sort of weird belief. So,
yeah.
Maybe, but we're not going to discuss that on today's show. Now, the witches, do you know who they work for?
Do they work for...
Oh, I thought she was going to say that. Do you know who the witches work for? Who's the witches' leader?
I think it's the one who owns the potion and the house.
No, who owns the dogs? You remember we learned about the black dogs in episode 1? Who owned the black dogs?
The devil.
The devil. The witches work for the devil. Should we do an episode on the devil at some point?
Yeah.
Yes, not Lucifer like your mum watches. If your mum or dad watches Lucifer as well, not that devil.
Because he's actually an angel, but so he's got a devil and half of an angel.
Yeah, so as you can tell, Emma watches weird programs with her mum and dad as well. So, what do witches always have? What's the one pet witches have?
They can have a cat or a dog.
A cat. They do now. We've got a cat here in the scary studio. We have a black cat.
Yeah.
Now, luckily for us, it's Halloween coming up, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we can buy a load of rubbish stuff to put around our little studio that we're going to make.
And it's just that sometimes he tries to but it was a toy.
Yeah, Jasper, our dog, thought it was a toy. Now, cats are believed in Celt mythology that cats are humans who've been forced to return to this world after committing a bad deed.
And in Hocus Pocus 1, in the olden days, the man turns into the cat.
Yes, yeah. The Winifred puts a spell on Thackeray Binks and turns him into a cat, which looks just a lot like that cat. He got squished as well, didn't he? Like that.
No. And then he just he appeared back, and then when the whole mission was done, he just like let down.
He did, and he got back up, didn't he?
Yeah.
So you asked me a question. I told you that witches were cats, and when I was researching this one, you asked me if witches have birds, didn't you?
Yeah.
Now witches do are related, not related, or in conjunction with some birds, and we've got one here.
Yeah, but it has red eyes, but it looks like a witch's bird.
A witch's bird, a crow. Now, crow are birds that are related to witchcraft. In addition to being very smart, crows have extremely good vision that was harnessed by the gods of pagan religions to use as animals, as guides or spies. So people believe that these birds worked for the witches. No? Okay. So we're going to tell some stories. Is that okay?
Yeah, and sometimes we use a book, an iPad, or use a laptop.
Yes, yeah. Emma has given the game away. So sometimes I have had the book in episode 1. In episode 2, I had an iPad. This week, I'll take a photo and I'll put it on the socials. I have set up my iPad, my laptop, underneath the camera so I can read the stories off it. So it looked seamless, kids. So it looked like I had everything in my memory, and and Emma ruined it. Ruined it! If I could put a curse on anyone, I'd put a curse on you. Get back in shot. Right, so before I tell you, the only problem with witches was there wasn't many scary stories. So I struggled to find stories where people had seen witches or witches had put curses on places. I know one story, and even then I was told this story as a young child and I've grew up with it. I've went on the internet, which has all the stories ever, and this story isn't here. So I've got a story that I actually remember that I can tell. But before I tell you about that, I want to tell you the other thing witches are famous for. Do you know what else they're famous for? What was massive?
The big thingy, the ball, what they have, like they have the spell on.
Oh, so the cauldron. They're famous for the cauldron.
Yeah.
Now, witches, you're right, witches did have cauldrons and books to boil potions.
And brooms so they can fly.
Brooms so they can fly. Get in, high five. Get up, sausage.
In Hocus Pocus 1.
I'm never watching Hocus Pocus again, by the way. We're never watching anything before we do a YouTube channel again. Jesus. Continue. Tell them about Hocus Pocus.
When the devil lets him in the home and then the man...
party. Mum kicks him out, doesn't she?
Yeah, and then some kid just walks by and then just steals the brooms and then walks away.
They do, they ran off with the witches' brooms. So what I want to tell you about with witches is the witches' trials. Now they ran for 300 years. Think of that, 300 years, right? Now what that was, people would accuse people of being a witch. Now you didn't have to have any proof. It's kind of like Facebook. You can just accuse someone of it and it goes viral. More on that later.
This is not a Super Bowl thing.
It's not a what?
It's not a Super Bowl like when you watch a football and Facebook someone.
Okay. To accuse someone of being a witch, this is all you had to do. You're a witch.
No.
You're a witch.
No.
She's a witch, everyone. Emma's a witch. Emma is a witch.
No,
Sounds like it. So, that's all you had to do. That's all you had to do to accuse someone. And do you know what they'd done to you if you were accused of being a witch?
Yeah.
What?
They would just laugh at you.
Oh, you wish they would just laugh at you. They would, are you ready to listen to this? They would hang you. Do you remember we've seen the witches being hanged in the movie? Where you've seen their feet? Or you would be burned at the stake. And get this, if you could fly away from the stake, you were a witch. But if you died, guess what?
You wasn't
a witch. But that's no good because you're dead. And the other thing they've done is they dunked women. They held women underwater. They had proper dunking machines where they would put a stone on, they would leave you in the water and then pull you up. And if you drowned, good news, you weren't a witch. What good's that to you?
It would be bad because...
It would be bad, you'd be... So that's how they've done their trials. Now, 90% of people being trialed for witches and murdered were women. And the reason the women were executed and accused is because they could brew potions to heal things that men couldn't understand. And because a man couldn't understand it, he went, witch! Has anyone got a tree we can put this little witch on? So that is what they've done. And there was a very, very famous person, you could look her up, called Joan of Arc. Now Joan of Arc was a French leader. She was known as like a French warrior. She's now a saint. She's Saint Joan of Arc. And she had visions and messages from God. She had visions and messages from God of how to keep the English back from France. And because she was right and she helped the French repel the English, once the English caught her, they accused her of being
a witch.
A witch. And do you know how they proved it?
By getting on the makeup off.
No makeup. They burnt her at the stake. So Joan of Arc was killed at the stake, where they tie your hands behind your back, like that, and then they tie your body to a big tree. They put lots of wood around it and they set fire to it. And she was burnt at the stake for being a witch, and she was only, guess how old she was?
72.
72. You love just chucking numbers together. She was 19. She was only 19 years old. And she was burned at the stake for being a witch. Now she's a saint. Not that that's... I bet if someone said, Joan, do you want to be a saint or do you want to be burned at the stake or kept alive, she'd have definitely went, oh, I'll just stay alive, thank you. But no, she was burned at the stake for being a witch. There was witches in England as well. The most famous one in England is Mother Shipton. She was feared and highly regarded by the English as an English prophet of the 16th century. She was born to a mother who was accused of being a witch. Is your mum a witch?
No.
Oh, I might disagree with you. Mother Shipton was described as hideously ugly and disfigured. That's not kind, is it?
No.
You wouldn't want to be described as hideously ugly, even though you are.
It's because it's like you like and subscribe the YouTube channel.
Just like saying like and subscribe. Get that in, 10 minutes in? Just like and subscribe, guys. So she was disfigured so much so that the locals called her Hag Face. And do you know who they thought her dad was?
A witch.
The devil. They thought her mum was a witch and her dad was the devil.
And
now,
the kid was just a normal person.
Just a normal person, but she did have clairvoyancy, which means she could predict the future. And she was compared to Nostradamus, who predicted lots of things. And according to legend, Mother Shipton predicted the Spanish Armada and the Great Plague of London, as well as the Great Fire of London. She predicted the execution of Mary Queen of Scots, and some even speculate around the world she'd had a fly of a twinkle in her eye.
I need my baby.
You need your baby.
Yes, you can.
But thankfully for her sake, Mother Shipton, she wasn't killed by the sword like so many other witches. She instead died a normal death, and she's been buried on unholy ground on the outer edges of York. So she's only buried just up the road, and she was buried in 1561. Now I'll tell you about the last trials I'm going to tell you about is the most famous of them all. Do you know what they are? Do you know what they are? Someone would have said it. The Salem witch trials. Now they were in Salem in Massachusetts in America. They were trialed in 1962. Now it started by two girls who had a fit, and the bodies were compulsing and they were shaking, and instead of people going there's something wrong with this child. Give us a shake your body. Instead, oh no, it's obviously a witch. A witch has done this. That's what they've done. And they accused 3 women of being witches. Now, instead of just going, no, we're not witches, they knew that they were going to be captured. So do you know what they said?
What?
Oh, I'm not the only witch. Emma's a witch. Daddy's a witch. The viewers are witches. And this created mass panic in Salem that everyone around them was witches. So they just started trialing people left, right and centre. They hung them, they dunked them in water, they burnt them at the stake. Like, hundreds of people in this 10-year period were killed for being witches.
Oh, or they can just like put me in the potion and like to poison Joe.
They could have poisoned them. Do you think? But the girls, they weren't poisoned by witches, and it wasn't trials. The girls had probably just eaten some bad fungus, which is mushrooms, fungi. Now I'm going to end this on hopefully a spooky story. It's not. It's good to learn about witches, but it's also more good to be scared a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you want to grab your baby? Who are you going to grab? Sit down, baby, please. Just so people... So you're still in shot. There we go. Right. Now, this story, if you're from the northeast, you will know this place. If you're not, just give it a Google. Delval. We've got a place called Seaton Delval, and it's named that after Delval Hall, because there was a family called the Delvals who lived there. Now, they accused someone on their grounds of being a witch. Now, they were going to burn her at the stake. I've told you how what happens with that, haven't I?
Yeah.
Now, normally, as with any society, you get a last request before you're executed. Now, her last request, they says, Mrs. Witch, Emma, is there anything you would like? And do you know what she asked for?
What?
2 metal bowls that were clean and dry to be placed upon her feet. So they went to get a bowl. Now one of the bowls was dirty, so the servant cleaned the bowl, washed it and loosely dried it, but it was still a little bit wet. And they put the bowls on the witch's feet and they started the fire. And then the bowls began to shake under her feet, and the witch began to rise up, and she started to fly, and she started to laugh maniacally. But one of the bowls was wet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it slipped off her foot, which meant the weight was all higgledy-piggledy, and the witch fell out of the sky onto the fire. And as she burned, she shouted, Delval Hall will burn 3 times, and after the 3rd time you will not rebuild it. Now, do you know how many times Delval Hall has burnt down?
For 3 times.
Only twice. But that means, and they've rebuilt it. We've been to Delval Hall, haven't we?
Yeah. So that means they were burning the witch.
They've rebuilt everything the witch said, but that means that there's going to be 1 more fire. That'll make 3. And what do you think will happen? They'll not be able to rebuild the building, will they?
And witches are afraid of water, even if it's 2, even if it's 1, or even if it's 3. And the witches would just say, it's just water.
Yeah, so in The Wizard of Oz, you chuck water at the Wicked Witch of the West and she goes, I'm melting! But in Hocus Pocus, Thackeray holds a lighter up to the fire sprinklers, it sprays water on the witches, but they were okay, weren't they?
Yeah.
One more story, one more quick one that sprung to mind. Talking about curses. Have you ever noticed, if you live in Newcastle, that it always seems to rain when the town moors here? You know the Hoppins, with all the rides? Yeah. It's always bad weather, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's because an old woman, a bit of a witch, was turned away years ago from the town. Why? She turned up in a caravan and they went, no, there's no space for you, go away. She put a curse on it. She said, every time you bring this fair to town, the weather will be bad and you will not make as much money as you could for turning me away. And I'll tell you, Emma, every time the town was here, it's bad weather.
Yeah, but when me and Dad and Colin and Mummy went,
Yeah.
it wasn't raining.
It wasn't. We got good weather when we went with Mummy and Colin. We had a lovely time. I took you on a fun fair, didn't I? On the fun house.
Yeah.
It was lovely.
But there was water and I was a bit scared and there was little slips.
You done it, you were fine, you were good, high five.
Yeah.
So, that's it from us and witches. Tune in next week when we will be learning about...
Sirens.
Sirens! I very much look forward to doing research and telling you all about the siren stories I can find. Hopefully, it'll be more stories than facts like it was this week, because this one was very fact heavy, wasn't it?
Yeah, and thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Melody, for the suggestion. That was good, that was nice, I like that. So, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to everyone who gets involved. I know Emma genuinely loves it and that makes me so happy, so thank you all very much. But until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And me, Emma.
And don't forget to...
like and subscribe.
She loves to like and subscribe. Bye.
And if you forget our names, it's just Emma and Dad.
Emma and Dad. Bye-bye.
Bye.